Уважаемые коллеги, доброе утро, добрый день. Dear colleagues, good morning, good day. If you have in Brunei, I have seen some of our colleagues. Сегодня мы с вами послушаем Erasmus лекцию нашего коллеги из Италии, с которым мы сотрудничаем с 2011 года, Риккардо Валентини, лауреат Нобелевской премии мира 2007 года, в составе команды ITP, лучший эколог Европы 2015 года, почетный доктор Тимирязевской академии Российского государственного аграрного университета, с которым мы сотрудничаем с 2011 года сначала в рамках мегагранта и затем в последующих за ним исследованиях, которые носят международный региональный характер. Несколько дополнительных слов о Риккардо Валентини. Он относится к наиболее цитируемым исследователям в области экологии. Он является одним из двух отцов-основателей международной сети станций «Флакснет», которые действуют на принципах исследования ветревых движений воздуха и коварианс. А в последние 5 лет он увлечен идеей, постепенно внедряет развитие современных систем IoT, систем экологического и агроэкологического мониторинга, которыми будет посвящена его сегодняшняя лекция. Лекция будет на английском языке, но, соответственно, она займет у нас полчаса, с тем, чтобы была возможность задать все вопросы, которые интересуют тех, кто у нас выступает в качестве слушателей, в том числе по вопросам методического, технологического обеспечения данных систем мониторинга и возможностей сотрудничества по их применению. Риккардо Валентини организовал производство датчиков NATO-Talkers, так называемых 4-го поколения дистанционно устанавливаемых датчиков, которые сейчас уже находят практическое применение, активно используются, уже счет пошел на первые 1000. Соответственно, мне очень приятно, что первые датчики Timiryazev были установлены на территории лесной опытной дачи нашего университета, и наши коллеги принимают активное участие в работах Риккардо Валентини. Сейчас я постараюсь сделать очень краткое введение на английском языке для наших англоязычных коллег, и Риккардо уже подключается. Dear colleagues from our especially Brunei universities that we have conversation yesterday, I would like to give some introduction about our today's Erasmus lecturer, Riccardo Valentini. He is Nobel laureate prize in framework of IPCC in 2007. He was recognized as best ecologist of Europe with a premium by RSAU in 2015. He is the honorary doctor of Timiryazev Academy, and he is professor of Tuscia University, the leading one in field of agriculture and environmental researches in Italy. His lecture will be about IoT systems of environmental and agroecological monitoring application, that now one of principal trends in modern monitoring technologies in field as environmental and agricultural issues too, because it's allowed to accumulate and systemize and analyze together information obtained from a huge territory and give impression about regionally distributed processes, activity, and environmental functions as soils, as lands, as trees. That it's very important to develop a modern technology of improvement of land use and biological resources. Сейчас мы с вами переходим снова на русский язык. Так, смотрим по времени 9 часов, и Риккардо сейчас будет подключаться. Дорогие коллеги, если у кого-то есть вопросы, вот сейчас еще, наверное, 1-2 минуты, когда Риккардо Валентини подключается, прежде чем он начнет, можно вполне их задать уже. Hi, Riccardo.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Morning. So I already gave some introduction.
Okay.
So we are ready as auditorium in our lecture in the department, as you have seen, as our colleagues from different regions of Russia and different parts of republics around Russia and even Brunei are looking forward to your starting your presentation.
Yes, you have to allow me to share my screen because...
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just 1 second. Okay. No, this not, sorry. Desktop. This one? Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So, dobre utro. Good morning, everybody. Здравствуйте. This is my just few words that I know in Russian. Yeah, I'd like to introduce you today to some, let's say, new ideas and technologies that we are developing, both in Italy and in Russia, together with the collaboration of Professor Ivan Vasinev in the Timiryazev agriculture faculty, as well as with the Rudan University in Moscow. Okay, I start from the fact why we need technologies, why we need to increase our capacity of monitoring in the context of the agroforestry sector. Sorry, Ivan, do you need to translate or just go on?
No, I believe that it would be better if we will be not step-by-step translate,
okay.
Only after this during question sessions.
Okay, no problem. So I go a little bit straight now. So just very, brief indication numbers at the global scale that require some urgent interest. First of all, that the land in agriculture is shrinking now. More and more food we need to the people, and so we pass, for example, from 1.7 agricultural land hectare, 1.7 hectare per capita to something like 0.7 hectare per capita today. So the land is lacking for producing new food. So we need to boost our technology, increase our technology to respond to the demand. And of course, a lot of forests now are destroyed. You see the only pure natural forests we have in the world are just in Russia, or in the polar forests in Canada, in Amazonia, in Africa, and somewhat in the Borneo. But the rest of the land is occupied by agricultural land. And in general, we are destroying forests at the rate of 30 million of hectares per year. So it's a huge amount of land that we use every year for expansion of agriculture. And today we have about 73% of the land available without ice globally that is used by human activities. So we have just very small land that we can cultivate for the next future generations. And this is why we need technologies. Secondly, the climate change effects are also very important. And there is an increasing of greenhouse gas concentration that produces warming. The carbon dioxide concentration is increasing very highly. At the same time, we monitor the carbon dioxide concentration at the level of atmospheric with satellites. You see the red areas in the world where we have more emissions of carbon dioxide. You also see in this animation that there is a red spot in Africa that is deforestation in the tropics. You see this red area. We see the burning of fires of deforestation. And we also see in Amazonia, there is a shift on seasonality due to the climate changes, the ranges, so that also we see this effect of human deforestation. So global warming is occurring and is a threat for agriculture, is a threat for forestry. And so we need to respond to this important element. The global warming is now increased by 0.87 degrees on a global scale, on the average, including ocean and land and atmosphere. So the global mean temperature. If you just look at the land data, over land globally, we have much higher warmings, something like 1.4 degrees. And even some regions, like the Mediterranean regions, now it's even more than 1.4, it's 1.5. And in Russia also, the warming is increasing a lot. The risk of climate change is clear. We have, in these points here represent, for example, global mortality of trees everywhere in the world. Now this is increasing of this mortality and decline, and also the impacts on crops is also increasing, particularly in the tropical region. Indeed, in Russia, you see these are the data from the Hydromet service. There is a clear trend of warming in the recent, let's say, 30 years. This was the, let's say, beginning of the century, actually half of the century, average temperature, and after you see this kind of significant trend that started more or less in the 80s and still going on, of course, with some fluctuations, but still going on in Russia until 2020. With a lot of impacts as well on several questions. One of the biggest one, for example, is the permafrost melting. How much this temperature warming will affect permafrost, let's say, stability. And there are already signs that in some cases, some regions, permafrost melting is creating also questions, problems to industry, to infrastructure, and also, of course, the agriculture. The agriculture effects may be stimulated because we published a paper with Professor Vasilyev about the influence of climate change on Russian agriculture, and we show that, okay, besides all the negative questions about permafrost, about maybe tree mortality, the agricultural production in Russia could be stimulated. You see this plant growth arrow is going up, so there could be possibility that we have more and more land available for agriculture in Russia. Sorry, what's going on? But also there are other, so there are good, let's say, effects of climate change in Russia, is for sure. Expansion of agriculture area, expansion of production. Russia now is the #1 producer of wheat or cereals, particularly wheat in the world. The second is Europe. And this occurred in the last more or less 10, 15 years because, for example, in '95, Russian Federation was the biggest importer of wheat all over the world. Now it's the biggest exporter. So that's, okay, it's due to policy, it's due to organization, so modernization of agriculture, but also to some extent also to the climate effect that stimulate. But there are, of course, other issues. For these are the forest fires, for example. Also this year was a terrible year for fires in Siberia. And so there are, you see, a lot of areas in Russia that are affected by forest fires. In 2019 also was quite, so every year there is a sort of increased number of fires. What is really different from Europe, that your fires are really huge. So we are thinking of fires that interest more than 1 million of hectares. That is incredibly large. Okay, so climate change will be with us for the future. These are some predictions of scenarios, and depends what we do with the climate policy, but more or less we are in the range between 2 degrees warming. That is what we like to have at the end. We cannot go back to 0, so we cannot go back to beginning of century climate. We will have anyway a degree of warming of 2 degrees, but up to 6 degrees, you see, globally. It is really very high. So the future is with global warming, for sure. We have to adapt. We have to find technology. We have to find a way to go out. Another interesting question is if it's possible to capture carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Yes, indeed, because the process of photosynthesis is very good because we take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and we put in biomass. And of course, this is also, there is a cost, that is the respiration of the plant, but the balance between photosynthesis and respiration is usually positive. So we have more photosynthesis than respiration, and the decomposition also. So there is quite a good potential for storing carbon dioxide in the biomass of trees or crops. I mean, perennial crops for sure, not annual crops. And in the soil also is possible to store more carbon than before. So that's are the main possible solution that people is thinking today to use for reducing the global warming, storing carbon dioxide in the plant vegetation ecosystems. Okay, there are also other gases that are important that are mainly due to agricultural activities. The methane fluxes, for example, is important for livestock. While, for example, the forest oils are taking up some methane. For example, forest oils are usually, I mean, if in the dry land, in upland land. If they're in the wet land, of course, they use emission of methane. Also, nitrous oxide is an important gas that is emitted by inorganic fertilization. That's something related with agricultural practices. But in general, if you look at the carbon cycle, the effect of forest is very clear. We have the emissions on the left side, and there are about 34 billions of tons of carbon dioxide per year due to the industrial energy processes, and deforestation is 12% contributing to this greenhouse gas emissions of carbon dioxide. But the atmosphere take up only 46%. Okay, that's very interesting. So half of the emissions are taken up not by atmosphere, but by forests and oceans. Without forests and oceans, the situation would be much more critical for the atmosphere. So we have indeed a positive in this moment. Conditions, forests in the world are absorbing 30% of global carbon dioxide, and oceans something like 24%. So we have natural systems that are important for maintaining the carbon dioxide level lower. And of course, we can enhance this. We can increase the amount of carbon dioxide that is stored in forest. It's more difficult and probably, I would say, not realistic to change the ocean uptake, because in the ocean it's very difficult to modify. We can modify the land, but not really the ocean. So the other question is the urban cities that are in the middle of this story, because this is where the people live today more. In 2050, we have 80% of global population, 80%. So 8 people over 10 people that will live in town. You see, okay, I don't have to explain you the Moscow growing in urbanization. It's one of the examples of big city expansion of a megalopoly. So everybody will live in city with a huge amount of waste, huge amount of consumption, pollution, and of course, contribution to climate change. So we have to do something in the cities to restore naturality, to restore parks, green, vegetation, restore also agriculture in urban areas as well. So at this point, there is a big question. What are the services that plants can serve to us in the future? This is very important. Ecosystem services is becoming a fundamental keyword of all the planning and policies in the land. What does it mean? Ecosystem services means that, okay, we know that plants are serving important products like food, fiber, materials like wood. This is the classical, let's say, positive products we get from ecosystems. But in addition to this classical production, there is also some other services, regulated services. For example, the example of carbon dioxide uptake is something that is not being considered in the past as a value, as an economic value. But indeed, today, there is an economic value of absorbing carbon dioxide in biomass. And that's important for professionals, for our work, let's say, to expand in this direction also. Water regulation, we know vegetation is very important to maintain a healthy condition, the soil, healthy condition of the water that we drink and we use, but also to prevent floods and big damages to cities and infrastructure. So the planting trees is in general vegetation, shrubs, grasslands is very, very important for the water regulation. Again, another service that classically we didn't consider as an economic value, but today, if you count the amount of money that we spend every year for damage recovery or for bringing water to the people, you can imagine how much value is an ecosystem service now. And of course, a third level of services is the cultural services. So basically something that is non-material, the aesthetics, the educational, the touristic service that of course we want to go in parks to breathe good air quality. So this is another important economic aspect associated with the vegetation and plants. So that's why we call ecosystem services the next revolution in our way to manage land. Not only consider the food, that's important, of course, in particularly quality, healthy, sustainable food, but also other services that are equivalent also. How do we measure, and monitor plants in general? There are many ways to monitor the environmental benefits of agricultural crops or forest trees. One is, for example, starting from the very basic, how, for example, to measure photosynthesis is very simple. Now there are also commercial equipments, and you can basically put in chambers plants, and you can measure the carbon dioxide concentration of the air before enter in the chamber and after it goes out of the chamber. And so you, by difference, calculate photosynthetic rates, and this gives you an idea of how much plant take up of carbon. This is commercially available today in different ways, and also the laboratory, the LAMP project that was funded by the Megacitites project by the Russian government has created now a very nice capability in Timiryazev to measure, for example, photosynthesis, gas exchange, water transpiration, as well as other biochemical type of analysis. These are, for example, soil chambers, the measuring respiration from the soil, decomposition rates. Again, this is also part of the Mega Grant LAMP laboratory that I hope you will visit with Professor Valentini in your staying for the course. And finally, okay, this was at the leaf level, but there is also another level that is the let's say more canopy level, okay, extending the scale of measurements at the level of one forest or one big field of agricultural field. And this is, for example, I'd like to mention the technology of ecovariance that this was developed many years ago. And I spent a lot of time in this technology as well myself doing research. Basically, the idea is to measure the amount of carbon dioxide or any other gas that is exchanged by vegetation and the atmosphere using the turbulent mechanism of transport of air. So what happens that you have in this case, for example, this vortex of air that move, okay, that create a turbulence situation. This vortex usually they carry down, they go down high level of CO2, okay. For example, if you take CO2 as a tracer, that is higher, okay, because it goes from the fresh air above, but also carry CO2 that is less depleted, so with less concentration, sorry, my graphic, so with less concentration. So the difference between the concentration between the air that goes up and the one that goes down, it's a little bit like measuring the chamber, okay? The example before, we measure the difference due to the photosynthesis. So the plants that are receiving more CO2 take up CO2 and the air, it's then depleted by CO2. So by the difference of these two measurements, we can get the amount of photosynthesis. And you can do this, of course, the turbulence is very fast, so we need to measure at high frequency. So we measure 20 times a second, okay? 20 times a second, it's really a lot. The concentration of the gas goes up and down, as well as with the wind speed in a three-dimensional dimension. So we need to know exactly when it goes up the air, when it goes down. And so you can see here a classical setup that is very similar to the one that you will see in the Timiryazev farm. I assume that is still there. Even confirmed that is still there.
It's working.
It's working, okay. And there's another station like this on the forest in the urban park, in Timiryazev Park, on top of the tower. So here there are two basic instruments, one similar to this one, this is the gas analyzer for measuring carbon dioxide, water vapor, for example, but also it's possible to measure methane. This is a methane sensor. Measure 20 times a second the concentration. And also this one is a sonic anemometer, the one that I mentioned that measures the three-dimensional component of the wind speed, also 20 times a second. So there's a huge amount of data that is elaborated, and at the end we know we can measure the fluxes of carbon dioxide and water vapor, methane. So now we have two scales, the leaf scale where we have chambers, and we have the forest scale or crop scale. We have like let's say more than 1 hectare of sampling, okay, with the ecovariance technique. What is in between? Unfortunately, there was not much developed for measuring, for example, a single tree or a single plant as an organism, as one unit. This is why we have developed a new technology that we have called Tree Talker. Tree Talker that is able to measure individual trees physiology, so that we can measure photosynthesis, water transport, functionality, condition for health at the level of one unit, that is the single tree. So the point is, can we measure photosynthesis of a tree? Can we measure water transport? And so that is main our idea. So we call this the tree biogeochemical unit, because indeed every tree is different from each other, and you can use this technology also to look at genetic differences or phenotypic differences between individuals. This technology is also applicable to fruit crops, for example, or woody crops like wines. So all the crops that have a woody stem. And okay, that's another question. So how many trees there are in the world? This seems to be quite a stupid question, indeed, but indeed there is a paper in Nature that has shown how many trees there are in the world, and they came out with this number. Okay, that is 3,040 billions of trees that are in this moment in the world. That's it's quite a stupid, I would say, research in some way, although it's very interesting from the educational point of view, because now what you do with this information. Okay, you can count another time. This was counted in 2050. We can count, I don't know, in 2021 and see the differences, and but I don't know. It's a okay, but we know at least that there are so many trees in the world. That's I think interesting. Anyway, it's an interesting information. But the point is, we want to know how they are behaving. They are good, they're bad, they are growing, they are not growing. What are the mortality rates? So these are the big questions we have indeed scientifically. But can we monitor all of them? It's another stupid question, of course. How you can monitor 3,000 billion trees, but it's not so stupid in some way, because maybe we can do it. Okay, there are many technologies. Okay, that for example, satellites now have increased their resolution. Drones are flying everywhere, and they are also able to do it. But also, it's possible to use technologies like sensors, like device that you can put on the tree to monitor its functionality. Okay, and this is a big revolution that started with microprocessor technology that is growing very fast. Maybe some of you, young people knows more about this famous word Arduino. Arduino is a processor, microprocessor that is very cheap, costs almost nothing, and is very powerful as a platform to attach sensors and measure different parameters from sensors. So the big revolution Arduino, I'm very proud because this was invented by an Italian professor, Massimo Banzi, that he was a professor at a technical school, by the way, in North Italy. And with the students, he basically engaged them in how to teach them in a simple way to use a microprocessor. He came out with this that is very simple to program. It's very clear, everybody can do it. And this popped up as an international standard for monitoring technologies everywhere in the world. Every industry process has this type of processor. And now it's very powerful. And of course, this company is bought by Americans. It's typical destiny of our European big ideas, and now the Americans hold mostly of the technology, of course, but it all started in Italy anyway. So, and though this is again an interesting question, this is a technology that they are also called Internet of Things. Okay, IoT, you would see more and more of this. So it's very popular in industry now. This Internet of Things world is growing very fast. These are the number of devices that are today in the world. Here, 2020, of the 30 billion. Okay, so remember the famous 3 number. We have now 30 billion Okay, we have to increase our number. We have 30 billion of sensors, okay? And by 2025, we'll have 75 as a projection of market growth, 75 billion of these devices. So it's really a huge revolution in the technology of monitoring. What is the point? The point is that we have everything in the industry, in robotics, automation, in all the companies, they have industrial processes, they use automation and robotics. What we don't have, or very minor, is in agriculture, in forestry, in natural environments. So we have not yet developed extensive technologies for monitoring ecosystems, forests, agriculture, and so on and so forth. This is why I call this a transition from Industry 4.0, that is the name of this revolution in industry, to the Nature 4.0, that is another revolution in the nature, so where technology will take place. Of course, this also involves not only processing, sensors, technology, but also, for example, big data analysis, machine learning technology, so this type of advanced data analytics. And so we come now at the last point, that is the technology we have developed, as I said before, in collaboration with Timiryazev and Ruden, this tree-talker device that it's an example of this Nature 4.0 technology, where you have some sensors that measure the transport of water in the tree or in any wood stem, even a small stem of 2 centimeters, we can measure water transport. And so how much water the plant is taking up. We have an infrared growth sensor for measuring the growth of the diameter of trees using a pulse technology in infrared radiation. This comes from robotics. It's the same sensor the robots using for sensing distances when they walk. We have a spectrometer with 12 bands that measure the color of the light that is transmitted through the leaves, so we can detect the changing color of leaves. We have also an accelerometer sensor that measures the movements of the plant. So, for example, it's very important in the urban environment to monitor the stability of plants and the changes in inclination. And of course, the most important thing is all these data are transmitted wireless, okay, directly to a server. So we can basically here in Italy, myself, I can watch the trees in Moscow, or you from Moscow can watch the tree in Indonesia, whatever they are, for monitoring their functions. This is the network. You have several of these devices put in the trees, and you have a gateway router that collects all this radio data using a special protocol called LoRa technology that has a capability of reaching in free air, in open space, up to 20 kilometers of distance for example, in urban or forest. It's much more limited, something like 1 kilometer to 3 kilometers, okay? And this data will go to a server. Of course, you can have app, you can have data analysis and all these type of things. This is how it looks like in the trees. It has a battery pack for running. In this moment, we are running for about a month and a half, because the water sensor technology consumes a lot of energy, quite a lot of energy. So you need to replace the battery every month and a half. But now we are developing a new package of battery that it can stand to at least 4 months of autonomy. And this is the gateway that takes the data by radio and send it to the cloud servers. Okay, these are some description of the different type of sensors. Okay, I don't want to spend time here. Okay, just briefly mention you, okay, sorry. The water transport in trees is measured by this technology, and here you have okay, an example of for example, diurnal fluctuations of the subflow, the water. You see, these are three trees that are monitored continuously. You see the water, not all are the same. There is one tree that is usually transpiring more water in some conditions than the other two. So, and this is, of course, again, the problem of phenomics, genetics, and also each tree has different location, different properties. But you can see these are the type of data we collect every hour. So these are examples of the water. Okay, midday, usually you have the highest water transport. During the night, it's 0. It's following very nicely the air temperature, for example, of course. But also we measure an important parameter. We measure also the moisture of the wood. Okay, so we can have a measure of the water content of the plants with a special capacitance sensors, and so we see that the moisture content is, of course, increasing when you have more transpiration as well. The other work the other parameter we measure is as I mentioned to you, is the color of the leaves. We have a special spectrometer with these two little holes that measure the light spectral composition in two major bands, in the visible and the near infrared. In total, we have 12 bands. And it's important because the chlorophyll has a spectrum of absorption. So the chlorophyll, if you measure, for example, the red band, you can tell how much chlorophyll it's in the plant. Okay, this is some calibration we made in the lab. Some results very interesting. This work was done by Alexey Yaroslav and Olga Fativa, I think, or Fariva, I don't remember, Fativa, I think. They made the PhD student. They made this work where Alexey Yaroslav is a professor. You know him probably. He has categorized the different leaf chlorophyll content with our spectrometer, and so it came out with different. You see, these are our data measured by the tree torque trees, and you see the different how the tree change color. We have different shapes and the amount of, in particular, the ratio between the 600 nanometer and the 720 nanometer bands are very significant in detecting a change in chlorophyll content. Okay, another point is the measuring of the diameter of the trees, the growth of the tree in time. As you see, we have this sensor measuring the reflection of light, and from the angle of the parallax, it's possible to measure if this trunk is moving toward the sensor. And this is the calibration that's been done in the lab. It's quite nice calibration. This is the distance, and this is the sensor output, and you can see it's quite nice calibration with a high level of R². And so we are able to measure, for example, this is an example of tree growth during the season. Finally, we have an accelerometer that is a sensor measuring the three angles in respect of the gravity. And so you can, for example, detect changes in stability of the tree. Okay, we have also other things that are developing. So we are not stopping our Nature 4.0 revolution. We have now a sensor for urban pollution, a crop talker that we are also working with Professor Vasinev to measure the height of the crops continuously. So to have an estimation of productivity of crops, and also spectrometric measurements of the nitrogen content of the leaves to regulate fertilization application. This is just an example of recent new sensor we have developed that is sensing forest fires. Okay, we have now a new device that is able to basically detect fires something like at 100 meter of distance. We can detect a lithophile as such like 50 centimeter by 50 centimeter flame. Okay, we can detect up to 100 meters of distance. That's very nice, and it's working now. We have 120 of these devices installed in the south of Italy in natural parks for forest fire prevention. Okay, big data analytics. You can do a lot of now analysis. We are in this moment we have so many data, but not yet fully analyzed. So, but the capabilities are really, you can imagine, we have now more than 2,000 of trees globally monitored. So you can do different approach like this cluster analysis for phenomics of trees, for example, or even combine the drones and the satellite images with the detection of the tree from above, but at the same time, you can zoom in and derive parameters, physiological parameters from the tree talker device. Finally, we want to expand this global network to reach most of the forest areas in the world. So in the moment we have these locations. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention here. It's an old slide, actually. It's an old slide. There is a site in Canada as well, and another site in the UK as well. And in total, we are now 2,000 tree talkers. So this is an old figure, the beginning of our network. So that's our ambition. And in Moscow, we have the only, let's say, urban tree monitoring network in the world with this device. It's in Moscow City in collaboration with the University. And here we have something like, well, I think 100 or so, or a little bit less, trees that are monitored continuously. So thanks to you, and thanks, thanks also to students working with me because they do a lot of work in this moment. They are quite busy. Okay, thanks a lot. Спасибо, спасибо большое.
Вам спасибо.
Thank you so much, Riccardo. So we'll have now possibility to ask questions that it would be interesting. So for some persons, for auditorium. You have showed some results on the tree monitoring in the forest condition. I remember as you control your grapes in your Tuscia in Italy in 2016 from Vladivostok. Have you some practice in this field to now?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't mention. I mentioned actually, but I didn't show. You're right. Some of the work that we have been doing. Actually, we're doing in 3 different type of crops that are non-forest. One is wines. We have now, okay, besides my Dacia, but we have a real installation with an important Italian wine producer in Sardinia island. So we have there something like 40, 50 devices that are continuously transmitting data on the wines water consumption. That is an important element. But also they measure the leaf, as you say before, leaf colors, and so able to detect changes in spectral composition of the light, and so detect, for example, disease or pests that can affect the wine crop. A second application we have is in olive trees in South Italy. We have now quite a lot of this device in sensing again the water and leaf spectral, and also we do have another important installation in fruit trees, plums, and also in nuts, walnut trees. Very interesting, the plums owner of the farm is not very much interested in the water question, but is interested in the diameter growth of the plum trees. You can ask why. It's interesting. That it's stupid, you know, because he makes money with plums, with fruit, not with the biomass. But he is a quite clever guy that is finding new way to increase his competition in the market, because you know there is a big competition between American plums and Italian plums in Europe. And he's one of the biggest producers of Italian plums. And he wants to show that the plums that is growing has a lower carbon footprint than the American ones, okay? So he wants to take into account the carbon sequestration of the tree as a measure of sustainability. So saying my plums are better because we save carbon dioxide from our crop compared with Americans. And apparently he is succeeding because he made he told a big conference in South America with all these plum producers over the world, and he was very successful, and everybody very interested in this concept of labeling the plums for the biomass carbon uptake. So for me, it's quite strange, but he had this idea, you know, so to use this technology for measuring carbon uptake. Okay, the question of sustainability of agriculture is a big question. As Professor Ivan knows very well, we need to reduce the emissions of agriculture if we want to be more competitive in the global markets.
Riccardo, another one question is still not another one. Okay, we have another one question.
You're talking about using of modern technology in analyzing of big data. And so you're talking about neural networks or something else?
Yeah, exactly. It's, as I said, we are just starting to approach this second part of the research, that is using the data, of course. First, we spend a lot of time to develop the technology. Now it's time to analyze the data, and yes, indeed, there are some students working now on, and also some colleagues also working on machine learning technologies. Like, yeah, neural network is one example of machine learning, but also other machine learning technologies and artificial intelligence technologies as well.
How wide is using today? Don't they create a big error in compilation?
Sorry, so can you repeat, sorry?
How wide is using?
Wide?
Wide, yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I told you, there is a lot of geographical distribution this moment, including Serbia, because I see here Miljan, that is a welcome in the chat. Is also Miljan starting to use this technology in Serbia as well. So there is this geographical extension now. So there are about 2,000 trees distributed in Italy, Serbia, Germany, Spain, Russia, Canada, UK now, and so in China, of course. So it's really something that is quite growing, and we are waiting now to analyze the data all together, change data, write publications. We are not yet at the final, of course, we're just the beginning of the story.
Questions is over. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. Thank you.
Riccardo, could you tell what kind of agricultural crops you believe could be most interesting and most prospective for analysis with this?
Okay, well, as I said, this is a technology for woody crops, okay? And of course, besides forest, okay, the point is that we can use particularly for fruit crops, okay? I think it's the very important technology because there is a lot of value in fruit and wines. I mean, this type of woody crops. It's called like this, you know, wines, fruits. But as you know, we are also testing this crop talker technology. That is a sensor measuring the height of vegetation crops. It can be used for wheat, for cereals, for annual crops, for perennials, for even for, let's say, potatoes or whatever. Horticulture crops can be used also in the greenhouse or in the field. So this crop talker, I hope will be ready in the next 2-3 months. We already have developed, we have to test. And I know that Timiryazev, with the project of Professor Vasily, we will go to test also. So from the next spring, I think we'll be really ready for deploying in the field the crop talker. That has the advantage to measure the height of the crop, and as I said, the spectrometry, so the chlorophyll count, nitrogen, this type of parameters from the vegetation.
Thank you. Some another questions? Miriam, have a question or not?
Just to ask, is it possible to make a small meeting after this?
Oh, I have at 10 o'clock, I have to give another lecture. Sorry for that. So in the course of the day, maybe yes.
Okay, no problem. We are here.
Okay, okay, we can change by WhatsApp the possible contact. Okay.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Another question is from De Silva. As I could understand, De Silva is from Brunei University. You're welcome, please.
Hello, yeah, I'm De Silva here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Hello. Yeah. Hello. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, talk. Yeah, quite interesting. Yeah. I also have very similar interests. Like I also call IoT, Internet of Trees. IoT, Internet of Trees. So
okay, great. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's quite very interesting because we normally monitor people, but we don't monitor the jungle. I think it's called like Internet of like the Jungle Book, something like Facebook. People can make because of your research is very important. To monitor the jungle without sensors, very difficult. I think it's quite a unique research. I like it. And also, I just want to understand whether do you use anything like drones? Like because you had mentioned about the height of trees. The height of trees can be measured using a drone, so you can cover a larger area. So do you think that is it a possibility that use drones instead of just standalone sensors? Like the drone can go over the crops, and it can collect a lot of data rather than using only one sensor. That's just what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the technology is possible. Okay, we are not doing drones. I mean, I know I have colleagues who are collaborating with people with drones. I didn't really, okay, it's very useful drones, but there is a fundamental difference. Okay, for trees, yes, you can measure the height of the tree. Okay, also with the LiDARs, for example, from airplane, it's very popular, but also drones now are taking on board the LiDAR for measuring heights. For crops, the resolution, I don't know if it's the same level as we can achieve with the ground sensors, first point. Second point that is more important, with drones you need someone that is flying the drone. So you need someone that is a human, let's say, that is able, he has a license, at least in Europe you need to have a license to fly drones. And you cannot fly not every day because it's costly, and also you need to have good weather for doing that. What I like of IoT, as Internet of Trees or plants, is that you put a sensor there and forget it, you know, and you go all home and you see the computer. You can watch every hour, every minute, in principle, your growth of your crop. So that's, I find, of course, there is a limitation in numbers. The drone can explore a bigger space, but with statistical sampling, I don't think there is much difference sampling, you know, a number of individuals, if you have a decent number, of course, versus complete coverage, you know. But I don't see that two things are in contrast. They are complementary, indeed. But I like the idea to stay home and watch my data, basically, and decrease the cost of monitoring in this way.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Quite helpful. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. I think I need to switch to this other conference, unless Ivan, you have some other urgent question.
Thank you
or?
so much, Riccardo. We
Okay.
wait you already for 3 months, but maybe now we'll be able to start this kind of short lectures time to time to obtain better impression of potential collaboration, especially for crop topic.
Yeah. For the crop, what we can do, you know, I can send you some prototypes. If I cannot come because of the COVID, we can send you some prototypes, and you can test in the field so that we can analyze the data in some real time. I don't know if you have winter crops that can be used as a test or in the greenhouse. But yeah, we can talk in this in details. Okay.
And already next week we will be ready to prepare agreement for buying 200 materials for crop toppers.
Okay. We can discuss this. Yes. Okay. Good. Thank you, everybody, and have a nice time in Moscow. And I hope we can stay all healthy and safe, so we can meet each other very soon. Bye.
Same to you. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Gracias.